Why was she back here, after all these years? The air outside the Navy compound smelled of salt, rust, and memory. She paused at the gate, sunglasses covering the eyes of a woman who had hidden for 18 years. Hidden tattoos, hidden scars, hidden truths. Her jacket sleeve tugged up as she showed her ID. The guard glanced at the wrist, at the faint ink curling beneath her skin, and then back at her face. He didn't comment. He didn't have to. The mark was there, the faded trident of a Navy SEAL. But there weren't supposed to be women with that tattoo. Not officially, not in the records. And that was exactly how she wanted it. She stepped inside, boots tapping against concrete, every echo chasing ghosts from the past. 18 years since she'd walked away. 18 years since she swore she'd never come back. And now, the SEALs had called her, personally. Why? The letter had been short. One line burned into her memory. We need you for something no one else can do. She had almost torn it up, almost ignored it. But when she looked at her only daughter, sleeping on the couch with a book sprawled across her chest, something inside her shifted. If this was real, if the mission was what she feared, it wasn't just about her anymore. Her daughter's safety might hang in the balance. She didn't even know the full mission yet, and that terrified her more than combat ever had. Inside the building, men in uniform whispered as she passed. Some recognized her. Most didn't. But those who did carried a flicker of disbelief in their eyes, like seeing a ghost walking the halls. One voice trailed behind her. That can't be her. She's been gone for almost 20 years. She didn't turn. She didn't need to. The briefing room was colder than she remembered. White walls, black chairs, the hum of a projector. 4 officers sat at the table. One empty chair waited at the end. She walked in straight-backed, silent. No salute, not yet. The man at the head of the table cleared his throat. His hair was gray now, his jaw harder. Admiral Harris. He had been young when she knew him, her commanding officer. Now he looked at her as if time had circled back on itself. "Glad you came," he said simply. She sat, didn't speak. Her silence was a weapon, the same way her rifle used to be. The projector clicked. A grainy satellite image filled the wall, a compound in the desert. High fences, armed patrols, shadows that didn't belong. "This," Harris said, "is off the books, completely. Not even the Pentagon will admit it exists, but something is happening inside, something no one has been able to infiltrate." Her jaw tightened. Infiltration, recon, extraction, these had once been her world. "Why me?" she asked finally. Harris didn't answer right away. His pause was heavy, deliberate. "Because someone in there knows your name." The words hit her like a sniper's bullet. She kept her face calm, but inside, everything shook. Her name, after all this time. She glanced again at the satellite photo. Somewhere in that maze of walls and shadows, someone had whispered her name. How? Why? She looked at Harris, eyes narrowed. "I haven't existed for nearly 2 decades. Whoever knows me is a threat to me, to my family. So tell me the truth. What's inside that compound?" The Admiral leaned forward, voice dropping low. "We don't know." The silence that followed was unbearable. They were sending her in blind. Her throat tightened. She thought of her daughter again. The promise she had made when she walked away from the SEALs. Never again, no more lies, no more disappearing in the night. She had lived quietly, built a life out of broken pieces. Her daughter had never even known who she really was. To her, Mom was just Mom, not a soldier, not a sniper, not a ghost of the SEALs. Now everything threatened to unravel. "Why me?" she repeated. This time it wasn't a question, it was a challenge. The Admiral's answer was softer, almost regretful. "Because they're expecting you." Her chest went cold. For a moment she couldn't breathe. 18 years, and somehow someone had kept her memory alive. She looked down at her hands, steady, calloused hands that had once held rifles, ropes, and knives. She thought she had buried that part of herself. but maybe it had only been sleeping. Still, she shook her head. No, I have a daughter. She doesn't know. She can't know. And if I walk back into this, I don't walk out again. Harris's eyes softened. If you don't go, your daughter won't have a world to walk in. That was the knife twist, the one argument she couldn't ignore. Her breath caught. She stared at the image again, at the blurred shadows behind the fence. The unknown, the threat, and in her chest 2 wars raged, the mother who wanted to protect her child and the soldier who knew what had to be done. She hated herself for already knowing which side would win. She stood. When do we leave? Harris exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. 48 hours, gear up, you'll be briefed on site. She nodded, but before she left the room, she said something she hadn't planned, something that came from the part of her that had been silent for too long. If I go back in, I'm not just your operative. I'm not your weapon. I do this my way, or not at all. The Admiral met her gaze, and for the first time, he didn't look at her like a soldier. He looked at her like a human being carrying the weight of 2 lives. Understood. She walked out, her pulse pounding, her mind fractured. In the hallway she stopped, leaned against the wall, closed her eyes. She could already feel the old world pulling her back. The adrenaline, the secrecy, the danger, and beneath it the fear she could never admit aloud. What if she couldn't come back this time? What if her daughter never knew the truth until it was too late? She clenched her fist against the faded ink on her wrist. For years she had hidden it. Now it felt like a brand, a reminder that no matter how far she had run, the past never let go. Outside, the sun was blinding. She slid her sunglasses back on, shielding herself once more. Her phone buzzed, a text from her daughter, just 6 words, "Dinner tonight, just us, right?" She swallowed hard. Her thumbs hovered over the screen. For the first time in years, she didn't know what to say. The truth would break everything. The lie would keep her safe, at least for now. She typed back, "Of course, just us." Her chest ached as she hit send. Because deep down, she knew it might be the last dinner they would ever share. And as she walked away from the compound, the question haunted her. How do you say goodbye to someone who doesn't even know you're leaving? Why was everyone avoiding her eyes at the airfield? She stood at the edge of the tarmac, duffel bag slung over her shoulder, watching the familiar yet foreign rhythm of a world she had once called home. Planes roared overhead, the smell of jet fuel burned her nose, and men in uniform moved with mechanical precision. But every time their gaze brushed past her, it slid away too quickly. They didn't know what to call her. Not officer, not operator, not veteran, not mother. She wasn't supposed to exist. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her bag. Somewhere in the hum of engines and shouted commands, she heard a whisper of her old self, the one who had once thrived in this chaos, but she buried it quickly. She wasn't here for pride. She wasn't here to prove anything. She was here because someone inside that compound knew her name. "Ma'am." The voice pulled her back. A young lieutenant, barely older than her daughter, stood stiffly at her side. He looked nervous, like he'd been told to escort a legend he didn't believe in. "Your team's assembling inside the hangar," he said, gesturing. Her team. She almost laughed. But she followed him, boots clicking on the concrete, each step heavy with memory. Inside the hangar, 4 operators waited. Not SEALs, not entirely. A patchwork crew, hand-picked, temporary, disposable. She scanned them quickly, her instincts switching on despite herself. One was too tall for stealth but carried himself like a wall of muscle, probably Breacher. Another had sharp eyes, restless, fingers twitching near his sidearm, likely intel or comms. The third was quiet, sitting cross-legged, head bowed as if in prayer. And the fourth, a woman. Younger, maybe late 20s, eyes bright but guarded. They all turned toward her as she entered. The air shifted. "Gentlemen," she said flatly, then looked at the younger woman and "Ma'am." No one smiled. The muscle leaned back in his chair, folding arms across his chest. So you're the ghost they pulled out of retirement. The words dripped skepticism. She set her duffel down, something like that. The restless one smirked. Didn't know the SEALs ever, he stopped himself, caught between disbelief and curiosity. Never mind. Her gaze cut sharp as a blade. Finish your sentence. The hanger went quiet. Finally, he muttered, didn't know the SEALs ever had women. There it was, the question no one wanted to say aloud. She stepped closer, slow, deliberate. Her boots echoed in the vast hangar. The young man swallowed hard but didn't look away. Records don't tell you everything, she said softly. And sometimes the best weapons are the ones no one believes exist. The woman on the team tilted her head, studying her. No judgment there, just curiosity, maybe even respect. Before the tension could thicken, the door at the far end opened. Admiral Harris walked in, carrying a folder under his arm. His voice cut the air. Enough introductions, you'll have time later, right now listen. They gathered around the table. A new map spread across it. This one sharper, closer, bleeding with red circles and notes. The compound sits here, Harris said, tapping a finger. No one been able to get inside without disappearing. Locals say it's just another training site. Our intel says otherwise. He glanced at her, just briefly, but long enough for her to feel the weight of it. Inside there's a man, calls himself Kael. He runs operations across 3 continents, smuggling, arms, disappearances. But that's not the worst part. 2 weeks ago, intercepted chatter suggested he has something more dangerous than weapons, something he's willing to kill to protect. The younger operator frowned. What kind of something? Harris's jaw flexed. We don't know. The words landed like lead. The operator scoffed. So we're flying blind. Yes, Harris said evenly, and that's why she's here. Every eye turned to her. She didn't flinch, though her chest felt tight. Harris continued. Kael's men sent a coded message last week. A single phrase, they called her by name. The restless one leaned forward. Why would he do that? Her silence filled the hangar. Why indeed? Harris closed the folder. You infiltrate, find out what Kael has, extract if possible, eliminate if necessary. Most important, bring back intel on why he knows her. The room was thick with unspoken questions. The Admiral's gaze swept over them. Wheels up in 4 hours, gears waiting, dismissed. He left without another word. The team scattered, some heading for lockers, some for weapons. But she stayed rooted, staring at the map, at the compound that had already begun to haunt her dreams. The younger woman lingered, finally stepping closer. Her voice was low, careful. Why do they know your name? She forced herself to answer, I don't know. It wasn't a lie, not fully. But deep inside, buried beneath years of silence, she feared the truth. Because there was only one person she could think of. And he was supposed to be dead. Her throat tightened. She walked away before the woman could ask more. In the locker room, the air was heavy with oil and metal. Rows of gear lined the walls, rifles, pistols, body armor. Her hands hovered over them, familiar shapes calling like old friends. She picked up a sniper rifle, the weight solid, balanced. Memory pulsed through her fingers, steady breath, silent shots, targets falling before they even knew she was there. But she wasn't that person anymore. Was she? She set the rifle down, harder than she meant to. The sound echoed. Her reflection in the locker mirror caught her off guard. She looked older, lines deeper, hair streaked with gray. Not the ghost they remembered. Just a mother with too many secrets. Her phone buzzed again. Another text. Her daughter, pick me up after school tomorrow. We can get ice cream. She closed her eyes. How do you answer when you might not come back? She typed slowly, yes, promise. Her chest ached as she slipped the phone into her pocket. She strapped on the gear. One piece at a time, armor over her heart, weapons at her side, knives in her boots. With every buckle and strap, the old self crept closer, the one she had sworn to bury. When she walked back into the hangar, the team looked at her differently, not with disbelief, with recognition. They saw a soldier, but inside she was still split in two. 4 hours later, the plane lifted into the sky. Engines roared, shaking the walls. She sat strapped in, helmet resting on her knee, staring at nothing. The young woman sat across from her. After a long silence, she leaned forward, almost shouting over the noise. "You nervous?" She thought about it. The fear wasn't for herself, not anymore. It was for the daughter who didn't know the truth. "Yes," she said finally. The woman smiled faintly. "Good, means you still care." The engines thundered. The desert stretched out below like a graveyard. And as the plane carried her toward the unknown, one thought pulsed in her mind. If he was alive, if the man she thought dead was the one calling her back, then this mission wasn't just about saving the world. It was about facing the one ghost she could never outrun. Why did the desert always feel like a grave waiting to be filled? She crouched low behind a crumbling stone wall, sand grinding into her gloves, night pressing heavy on her shoulders. The compound loomed less than a mile away, floodlights sweeping like cold knives, shadows of guards patrolling with rifles slung easy but ready. The team lay scattered around her, waiting for the signal. Her heart beat steady, too steady. She remembered this feeling, the calm before action, the body remembering what the mind begged to forget. Beside her, the younger woman adjusted her NVGs, whispering into comms. "Perimeter sweep, 2 guards, northwest tower. Timing sloppy." The restless one clicked his radio twice in acknowledgment. He was already crawling forward, movements quick and nervous. She watched him go, too eager, too loud. She wanted to snap at him to remind him patience was survival, but she held back. He wasn't hers to command, not yet. Instead, she whispered into the mic, "Hold position until I say." The comms went silent. They didn't want to listen to her. She could feel it, the doubt, the resentment. Who was she to give orders after 18 years in the shadows? But then the tall breacher's voice rumbled in her ear. "Copy." Just one word, solid. She let it anchor her. The desert wind whipped harder, carrying grit against her face. Her eyes stayed on the compound. She studied the rhythm of lights, the movement of guards, the gaps no one else noticed. Her brain built the pattern automatically, the way it had so many years ago. Old instincts didn't die, they waited. Finally she spoke. "Window opens in 30 seconds. We move on my mark." The restless one hissed back. "Who died and made you lead?" Her jaw tightened. Memories surged. Men who had asked the same thing once, men who didn't survive to ask again. She answered with ice in her voice. "No one died yet. Let's keep it that way." The channel went dead again. The seconds crawled. Then, as the guards turned away, she whispered, "Mark." They moved, silent shadows across an endless sea of sand. Her muscles remembered every motion. Low crawl, controlled breathing, weapon tucked tight. For a moment, it was like she was 20 again, not a mother with gray streaks hidden beneath a helmet. At the outer fence, the breacher set charges, quiet, precise. A faint pop of metal cut free and a gap opened. One by one, they slipped inside. The compound smelled of diesel, sweat, and something darker, something chemical. She felt it before she saw it, the wrongness hanging in the air. They fanned out, hugging shadows. The restless one darted too quickly, his boots scraping gravel. She flinched. Rookie mistake. "Slow down," she hissed. He ignored her. But before she could move after him, a figure appeared at the far end of the yard. A guard, cigarette glowing red in the dark. The restless one froze, too late. The guard turned, eyes locked. Her body moved before thought. Rifle up, breath steady, trigger squeeze smooth. The shot was a whisper in the night. The guard dropped soundlessly, cigarette still burning on the ground. The team froze. Her chest rose once slowly. She lowered the rifle, voice calm in comms. "You're welcome." No one argued after that. Inside, the compound unfolded in corridors of steel and shadow. Rooms with crates, weapons, and maps of regions circled in red. But no people. Too quiet. The younger woman whispered, "Feels wrong, like they cleared out before we got here." She felt it too. The absence was louder than gunfire. At the center of the compound they found it. A steel door, double-locked, humming faintly with power. The breacher knelt, pressing an ear to the frame. Something's alive in there. Her stomach twisted, not alive, active. The restless one grinned, too eager. "Let's crack it." But her hand shot out, gripping his arm. He tensed, surprised at her strength. "No," she said, "not yet." She crouched, running her fingers along the steel. Warm. Whatever was inside generated heat. Too much heat for a simple store of weapons. "What the hell is this place?" the younger woman whispered. No answer came. And then voices, footsteps. Guards flooding back into the compound. "Ambush," she hissed. "Fall back now." They scrambled for cover, gunfire tearing the silence apart. Bullets ricocheted off steel and stone. The younger woman pressed against a crate, firing controlled bursts. The breacher returned fire with heavy rounds, each shot echoing like thunder. The restless one panicked, shooting wild, shouting curses into comms. She grabbed his vest, yanked him down just before a spray of rounds shredded the air where he'd stood. "Stay low," she barked. His eyes were wide, breath ragged. For the first time he looked at her not with doubt, but with raw fear. They moved as a unit now, retreating through the maze, trading fire, shadows flashing in and out of sight. Her mind raced. Why had the compound seemed empty? Why leave the steel door unguarded until the exact moment they reached it? Unless they wanted her to find it. Unless the ambush wasn't meant for the team. It was meant for her. A guard's face appeared around the corner, too close. Her knife was in her hand before she thought, a swift arc across his throat. Warmth splattered her glove. He dropped silently. The younger woman stared at her for half a heartbeat, not with horror, with recognition. She wasn't just a ghost, she was a weapon. Finally, they burst through the same gap in the fence, sprinting into the desert night. The gunfire didn't follow far, almost as if the enemy didn't want to chase them, almost as if letting them escape had been the plan. They collapsed behind the stone wall where it began, breath ragged, sand sticking to sweat. The breacher swore under his breath. What the hell was that? She didn't answer right away. Her eyes were on the compound, glowing faintly under floodlights, the steel door still locked at its heart. "They knew we were coming," she said finally. "They wanted us to see that door, and they wanted us alive when we left." The restless one laughed bitterly. "That's insane. Why would they?" Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "Because someone in there isn't just waiting for us." She touched the ink on her wrist, the faded seal trident. "They're waiting for me." The desert wind swallowed the silence that followed. She looked out at the horizon, where dawn began to touch the sand with pale light. And deep in her chest, fear coiled around something sharper, something she hadn't felt in years. Dread, but also recognition. Because the kind of trap they had just walked into, the kind of patience, precision, and control, it reminded her of only one man. The man she thought dead. And if he was alive, the mission wasn't just impossible. It was personal. Why did the desert feel colder now, even under the first pale light of dawn? They huddled behind a ridge of cracked rock, sand in their boots, bodies trembling from adrenaline. The compound loomed in the distance, quiet again, almost serene. Too serene. She wiped grit from her eyes, scanning the horizon. Every instinct screamed that this was not over, not by far. The team sat in scattered silence. The restless one chewed the inside of his cheek, staring at the ground. The breacher checked his rifle, muttering under his breath. The young woman cleaned her pistol with methodical calm. And she sat, knees pulled to her chest, fingers brushing the faded trident tattoo hidden beneath her sleeve. She hadn't thought about that mark for nearly 2 decades. Not in daylight, not in years. Not until she felt it burn under the weight of this mission, under the gaze of a man who should have been gone. 18 years ago, she had left it all behind. Left the seals, left the adrenaline, left the ghosts. Left a life she could pretend was normal. But now it all clawed back. "You okay?" The younger woman's voice broke through her thoughts. She looked up, their eyes met. Open, honest, unafraid, a rare thing in her life. "I will be," she said softly. And it was true, she would be. She had survived worse. But the truth, the question gnawing at her, lingered. Did she want to survive this? They moved to a small outcropping, huddling close as she laid out the next steps. Satellite images, timings, patrol patterns, it all fit together except one detail. One that didn't make sense. The steel door. Why leave it so exposed? Why let them see it? Her gut tightened. Someone inside wanted her to know it was there, and someone inside wanted her alive. The team watched as she traced roots in the sand with a gloved finger. Her voice was calm, detached, but inside, chaos swirled. "We regroup at Point Delta," she said. "We stay out of open areas, avoid patrols, and we wait for nightfall." The breacher nodded. "Point Delta's 2 clicks north. Rough terrain could slow us down." "I'm aware," she replied. The younger woman hesitated. "Why not go now?" She looked at her, eyes hard. "Because if we push in daylight, we die. And if we die, we answer no questions, uncover nothing. Patience isn't just discipline, it's survival." They started moving across the sand. The wind had risen, shifting dunes, erasing footprints, masking their movement. Yet every step forward felt like walking deeper into a trap designed just for her. Her mind flicked to him, the man she thought dead, Kael, or maybe another. Whoever had orchestrated this, whoever knew her name, had waited years. 18 years. Why me? Her chest ached. Not from the run, not from the weight of armor or rifle, from memory, from loss, from the life she had tried to build outside the shadows. A lifetime of hiding in plain sight had taught her one thing. Fear was a luxury she couldn't afford. But grief she carried anyway. As night fell, they reached Point Delta. The desert stretched like a black ocean, jagged and unforgiving. She motioned them to settle. The breacher whispered, "We can see the compound from here." She didn't respond. She didn't need to. The steel door glimmered faintly in the moonlight like a wound in the sand. Her fingers touched her tattoo again. This was personal now. She had walked away to protect someone she loved. She had buried herself in a lie, convinced that leaving was the only way to survive. But now, that lie threatened to destroy everything she had tried to protect. And worse, the man who had haunted her past might still live. The younger woman leaned forward. "You okay?" Her voice was steadier than she felt. "I will be, but tonight we move carefully." The wind shifted, carrying the faintest sound, metal scraping against metal. Not the compound, something closer. She froze, the team noticed. "Did you hear that?" the breacher whispered. She nodded, "Stay sharp." A figure emerged from the shadows, a scout alone, moving deliberately. Her team tensed. She counted heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. The figure paused, turned, and then froze. Recognition flared in her chest, cold and bitter. Not his face, not yet, but the presence, the calculated precision of movement. She knew this style, these instincts. Someone had trained her to recognize it. The scout didn't move toward them, didn't fire, just watched. She signaled the team to remain still. Her pulse slowed, measured. Every instinct screamed, "This is a test, not a trap, not yet." Then, just as silently, the figure melted back into the desert. "What the hell?" the restless one muttered. She shook her head. "No one attacks yet. They're sending a message. A warning or an invitation." The team pressed closer together, whispering strategy and contingencies. But she was elsewhere, thinking of the past, of a life she had buried, of choices she could never undo. Her daughter's face flashed in her mind, sleeping peacefully in another world, unaware of what she had been, unaware that danger now hunted her mother in the desert night. She swallowed hard. The weight of responsibility pressed down like the steel of her rifle. Survival wasn't just for her, not anymore. And yet, survival might not be enough. She traced the route to the steel door in her mind again. Every patrol, every camera, every guard's rotation. The calculations were precise, too precise. Someone wanted her to succeed, or wanted her to fail spectacularly. 18 years of silence had taught her one immutable truth. No one could know her, not really. And yet, someone did. The wind carried another sound, this time closer. Steps behind them, careful, deliberate. She spun, weapon up, eyes sharp. Nothing. Then a whisper, her name, soft, faint, carried on the wind. It froze her blood. She lowered her rifle slightly, shaking. Not with fear, with recognition. The ghost of the past had found her. The younger woman whispered, "Who?" She pressed a finger to her lips. "We wait." The night stretched endlessly. Sand slipping between fingers, stars overhead, indifferent. The silence became a mirror, reflecting all the truths she had tried to bury. They know me, they've always known me. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself a thought she had buried deep. Maybe they didn't call me back just for the mission. Maybe they called me back for me. The team slept fitfully, weapons within reach. She stayed awake, eyes scanning, mind racing. Every shadow was a threat. Every movement was a test. Every heartbeat was a question. Could she survive what was coming? Could she protect those who trusted her? Could she face the man she thought dead without losing herself completely? Dawn approached. Pale light touched the sand, and with it, the steel door gleamed in a way that made her chest tighten. Tonight had been a warning. Tomorrow would be the reckoning. She touched her tattoo one last time. It was more than ink. It was identity, memory, sacrifice, a promise to herself and the daughter she loved more than life. She whispered into the wind, almost inaudibly, "I've come back for you, whoever you are." The desert seemed to listen. And somewhere inside the compound, a presence shifted, watching, waiting. The first strike would be hers or his. And nothing in her 18-year exile had prepared her for the truth of what she would find. Why did the silence feel louder than gunfire? They moved under the cover of the early morning light, each step deliberate, muscles coiled, senses stretched thin. The steel door loomed ahead, solid and silent, humming faintly as if alive. Her team followed closely, trusting her instinct, even the restless one, though doubt still lingered in his eyes. She reached the door first. Fingers brushed the cool metal and a wave of unease rolled over her. This was it, the heart of the trap or the heart of the mission. She couldn't tell which yet. "Watch the vents," she whispered. "Sensors, cameras, pressure plates, nothing moves until I give the word." The breacher knelt, checking for traps. The younger woman covered angles, breathing soft and steady. The restless one fidgeted, clearly struggling to hide fear under bravado. Her mind drifted briefly. She remembered her first mission 18 years ago. Same tension, same adrenaline, same knowledge that one wrong move meant death. And yet back then it had been easier. Back then it had been all about the mission, not the people she loved. Now one wrong move could destroy everything. Her team, the mission, her daughter. She swallowed hard and touched the tattoo on her wrist. It burned faintly under the fabric, a reminder of who she was, of who she had always been. The breacher gave a subtle nod, clear. She exhaled slowly, "Open it." The steel door hissed and swung inward. revealing darkness so complete it felt like swallowing a piece of night. They moved inside, weapons raised, hearts hammering in sync. The corridor was narrow, walls metallic, humming faintly with power. The scent of oil and machinery filled the air. Then a figure emerged from the shadows. Not a guard, not an enemy soldier, a man. She froze. He didn't move fast, didn't attack, just watched. Recognition clawed at her chest, cold and sharp. The way he carried himself, the subtle tilt of his head, the confidence in his stance, it was all too familiar. Her breath caught. It couldn't be. Kael, she whispered almost inaudibly. He tilted his head, a faint smile curling the corner of his lips. I was hoping you'd remember me. Every muscle in her body tensed. Memories surged, missions, briefings, nights spent chasing shadows, promises whispered in the dark, a life she thought she had left behind. He stepped closer, hands open, calm, no weapons drawn yet. You're alive, she said, voice low, steady despite the storm inside. I've always been, he replied. Her mind raced. Every scenario she had imagined in the last weeks, every threat, every ambush, it had led to this moment. Him, alive. Why, she demanded. Why call me back? Why now? His eyes softened, almost human. Because only you could come here, only you could see what's happening, only you could stop it. Her pulse quickened. Stop it, you've been orchestrating this the whole time. He shook his head. No, I've been waiting for the right person to do what needed to be done, and that person is you. The restless one muttered, she knows him, who the hell is he? She didn't answer, she couldn't. The weight of history pressed down. Every step she had taken, every choice she had made, it all led here. Kael's gaze shifted, scanning the team. You've brought help. She nodded slowly. I didn't come alone, but they don't know you, they don't know what's at stake. He studied her for a long moment, as if weighing her soul against some invisible scale. Then he said, almost to himself, you always were the only one I trusted. The words struck her harder than bullets ever had. The corridor behind them suddenly echoed with movement, guards returning. They had been watching all along, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Time, she whispered, positions. The team dispersed into cover. She and Kael moved as shadows, synchronized from years of training together, yet separated by 18 years of silence and distance. Gunfire erupted, bullets sparking against metal. The younger woman fired steady, precise. The breacher moved like a wall, covering angles. The restless one hesitated, but she shot him a look that cut through doubt, and he steadied. She glanced at Kael. He was fluid, deliberate, a ghost of her past life. But the moment was more than tactical, it was personal. Every movement, every shot, every silent breath shared between them spoke of old bonds, old trust, old pain. Stay with me, she hissed. He nodded, eyes locked on hers. The fight was brief, violent, and chaotic. They neutralized the guards, slipping past corridors and stairwells, deeper into the heart of the compound. Finally, they reached a room, a control hub. Screens lined the walls, maps flickering, data streams streaming endlessly. She stepped inside, heart pounding. And there it was, the device. Small, unassuming, but lethal in potential. Chemical, mechanical, something she didn't fully understand. Kael stepped beside her. It's worse than I thought, he murmured. Her pulse quickened. Then we dismantle it now. He nodded, handing her tools, guiding hands trained to work together, synchronized instinctively. Her fingers moved deftly, cutting wires, disengaging circuits. But every second she worked, she felt the weight of history pressing down. The 18 years of silence, the choices she had made, the lies she had told her daughter, the life she had tried to live, all converged in this moment. You shouldn't have come back, Kael said softly. I had no choice, she replied. He glanced at her, eyes lingering. You always did what was impossible, even if it cost you everything. Her hands shook, not from fear but from the knowledge that he saw her completely. The soldier, the mother, the ghost she had tried to bury, he saw it all. The device hummed one last time, then went dark. She exhaled, leaning back against the wall. Relief, victory, but fleeting. Because even as they neutralized the immediate threat, the question remained. Why had he waited 18 years? Why now? And who else knew her name? Kael met her gaze. There's more, much more, and it's coming, faster than we thought. Her chest tightened. Fear, yes, but also something else. Recognition, resolve, a spark that hadn't died in 18 years. I'll handle it, she said, voice firm, steady. No, Kael replied softly. We handle it together like old times. She nodded, swallowing the ache in her chest. Old times, when the world was simpler though never safe, when trust had been everything. The younger woman peeked in, eyes wide. You too, what's going on? She hesitated, not the time, not yet. We don't have time to explain, she said. Right now we move, the mission isn't over. The team assembled quickly, moving as a unit again, but something had shifted. She wasn't alone in her past anymore. And for the first time, the weight of 18 years of secrecy felt manageable. As they slipped back into the shadows of the compound, she glanced at Kael. 18 years of silence, of running, of hiding, and now he was here, waiting, watching, trusting. It was impossible. And yet somehow it felt inevitable. The desert outside stretched, indifferent and endless. But she carried something inside her now, old strength, new purpose, and the knowledge that the ghost of her past was alive, breathing, fighting beside her. And the question lingered, unspoken. Could she survive the present, without losing herself again? Because one truth was undeniable: some ghosts never truly die. And some shadows always wait for you to return. Why did the shadows feel alive? The corridors of the compound twisted around them, cold and metallic, humming with power. Every corner promised danger. Every flicker of light could conceal a trap. She led her team silently, senses straining. Her pulse was steady, but beneath the armor of discipline, fear slithered. Not for herself, for the people depending on her, for her daughter, for Kael, alive, unpredictable, dangerous, yet the only person who might understand her fully. The young woman followed closely, eyes scanning every corner. The restless one stumbled once and she caught him without turning. A flick of her wrist, a firm grip, and he steadied. Stay close, she whispered. They reached a junction, a T-shaped corridor. Surveillance screens flickered ahead, monitoring every movement. The hum of the steel door they had passed lingered in the air, a quiet heartbeat of the compound. Kael stepped beside her. They're ready for us, he said softly. They know you're here. Her fingers tightened on her rifle. Then we make them regret it. The first wave hit without warning. Guards burst from hidden panels, weapons raised. Her team reacted instantly, trained, precise. Bullets sang through the air. Sparks flew from metal walls. The younger woman fired controlled bursts, each shot deliberate, deadly. The breacher moved like a fortress, shielding others, his heavy rounds reverberating. The restless one found rhythm, following her lead, finally moving as part of the unit. She moved through the chaos, calm, focused, each shot and movement an extension of instinct honed over decades. But her mind was elsewhere. Memories of missions long past, the first kill, the first extraction, the first time she realized she might never return home, haunted her. Kael moved beside her, silent, lethal, familiar. Together they were a force, a perfect, terrifying synchronicity. But every step forward reminded her she hadn't done this for glory. She hadn't done it for pride. She did it for survival, for redemption, for the daughter who had no idea what her mother had once been. A guard appeared in a shadowed doorway. Reflexively she shot, but her mind screamed too close to Kael. Her heart skipped. Kael's hand shot out, pushing her aside. The guard fell, lifeless. Her chest heaved, not from exertion but from realization. She wasn't alone anymore, and yet the bond they shared carried risk. "Stay with me," she hissed. "I'm right here," he replied. They moved deeper, past rooms filled with crates, blinking screens, and the faint smell of chemicals. Something inside the compound hummed with menace, a quiet promise that their battle had only begun. Then came the sound, footsteps above them, lighter, faster, almost predatory. "Roof patrol," she whispered. The team adjusted silently. Every shadow became a threat, every sound a signal. She glanced at Kael. "We split." He shook his head. "Together." They advanced, walls closing in, each step deliberate. Then, at a bend in the corridor, they saw it, a room sealed with reinforced steel, humming louder than the rest. Her pulse quickened, the device, the heart of it all. She glanced at Kael. His expression was unreadable, calm, deadly. But beneath it she could sense tension. Something about the way he looked at that door, it wasn't just tactical. It was personal. The breacher knelt, setting charges. She motioned to the team to spread out, eyes scanning every angle. Before the door could explode, the steel frame shuddered, and then it moved. Someone or something inside had opened it from the other side. The door swung inward, revealing a figure shrouded in darkness. Her breath caught. It wasn't a guard, not entirely. It was a person, moving with a precision she recognized instantly. Every motion, every hesitation, every calculated step, it screamed familiarity. Her mind raced. Could it be? The figure stepped forward, and the dim light revealed a face she had hoped never to see again. Her throat tightened. "Why?" she whispered, voice trembling with disbelief, anger, and 1,000 memories. The figure smiled faintly, almost cruelly. "I had to make sure you remembered. I had to bring you back to me." Time slowed. Memories flooded her mind, training sessions, missions, whispered promises in the dark. Every lesson, every secret, every scar, it all led here. Her rifle shook in her hands, not from fear, but from the weight of the past and the danger of the present. Kael moved beside her, his presence grounding, steady. But even he didn't speak, because even he couldn't erase what history had carved into her heart. The figure stepped closer. "You've grown," they said softly, "stronger than I imagined, but still vulnerable." Her jaw clenched. "You shouldn't be alive," she spat. "You thought that," he replied, "but you never truly knew me. And now, neither will you leave here unchanged." The air vibrated with tension. Bullets ready, hearts pounding, every instinct screaming danger. The younger woman whispered, Who is that?" She didn't answer. Not yet, because the truth was both terrifying and impossible to admit. The figure, moving closer, exuded the same lethal calm she had known in someone she had once trusted with her life, someone she had believed dead, someone she had never truly left behind. The mission, the ambush, the past, it all converged in that corridor. And she realized with a sickening clarity that this was no ordinary mission, no simple extraction, no standard intel retrieval. This was personal. Every breath, every heartbeat, every decision from this moment on would test her in ways she hadn't been tested in 18 years. And yet she raised her weapon steady. Because even if the past came for her, even if the ghosts of old missions, old alliances, old betrayals threatened to consume her, she would fight. Not for glory, not for revenge, but for the people she loved, for the daughter who didn't know her history, for the chance to finally confront the truths she had buried and survive. The corridor echoed with a low hum. The device, the trap, the shadowed figure, it all waited. And she knew, once they stepped into this room, nothing would ever be the same. The first shot rang out, and the reckoning began. Why did the corridor feel like it was closing in on her? The figure in front of her didn't move like a man anymore. It moved like memory made flesh. Every gesture, every tilt of the head, every breath was familiar. too familiar. Her finger tightened on the trigger, her breath was steady, but inside a storm raged. Kael's presence at her side grounded her, his silent gaze communicating understanding without words. But even he didn't speak, because he knew the storm she carried was hers alone. "Why now?" she demanded, voice low, trembling with suppressed rage. The figure smiled faintly, almost pitying. "Because you came back, because you couldn't stay away, because some debts aren't paid with distance." Her pulse quickened. The words struck harder than bullets ever could. 18 years of exile, of pretending, of silence, it all funneled into this moment. She moved, careful, deliberate. The team spread, weapons raised, shadows blending into shadows. Every step she took was measured, every breath controlled. "Stand down," she whispered to the restless one. He froze, eyes wide, hands shaking. She didn't need to turn, he would obey. He had no choice. The figure tilted its head, observing, calm, calculating, a predator playing with prey. She clenched her jaw. "You think 18 years erased me?" "Not erased," he replied softly. "Refined, tested, stronger than I imagined, but still human." Her fingers brushed the tattoo on her wrist. The mark she had hidden for so long, a symbol of her past, her choices, her sacrifices, the ghost of who she had been, and the reminder that some truths could never stay buried. Kael stepped closer, voice barely audible. "Remember why we're here. Focus." She exhaled, nodding slightly. His presence was a tether, a reminder that she wasn't alone in this storm, even if the past tried to consume her. The shadowed figure shifted. "You left," he said. "Left everything behind me, them, yourself." She tightened her grip on her rifle. "I left to survive, I left to protect, and I left to forget." "But you never could forget," he said, stepping closer. The hum of the device in the center of the room vibrated faintly, a pulse against the steel walls. "And now you've returned, to face what you couldn't leave behind." Her chest ached, not from the fight, not from exhaustion, not from fear, but from the weight of history pressing down. Every memory, every mission, every choice she had made, and the one person she had hoped would remain gone, stood before her. The first shot rang out. Not hers. The younger woman had fired, taking down a guard who had slipped in from a side corridor. The tension exploded into chaos. Gunfire, movement, strategy, all fluid, instinctive, and deadly. She and Kael moved in synchrony, shadows among shadows. Years of training, trust, and history carried them. Every shot, every dodge, every step was a dance of survival. But the personal stakes were higher than any mission she had ever undertaken. Every movement risked revealing more than tactical skill. It risked opening wounds she had kept hidden for nearly 2 decades. The shadowed figure advanced, moving with precision, almost familiar precision. Her pulse pounded. She had trained for this, fought for this, survived for this, yet nothing prepared her for the recognition, for the personal history entwined with danger. Kael leaned close, whispering, "You know him, don't you?" She swallowed hard. "Yes, too well." The corridor narrowed. Every wall, every corner, every echo threatened to trap them. Her team stayed close, silent, lethal, trusting her instinct above all. The figure spoke again. "You ran from me, from this, from us, and now you can't run anymore." Her chest tightened, fear. Yes, but beneath it resolve, rage, determination, love, pain. A lifetime compressed into one moment. She moved forward, rifle steady, eyes locked. "I didn't run, I survived, and I will end this." The device hummed louder. A countdown, or a warning, she couldn't tell. But time was slipping and the mission demanded action, precision, courage. The shadowed figure raised his weapon, and for a heartbeat she froze, not from fear but from recognition. Memories of past missions, whispered secrets, shared risks, all converged in that instant. Then Kael shouted, breaking the silence, and the team reacted. Bullets ricocheted, sparks flew, shadows danced against steel walls. She moved like a ghost, precise and lethal, every shot calculated, every step measured. The figure advanced, countering, moving with equal skill. Her pulse matched the rhythm of the chaos. But beneath the tactical precision, her mind wrestled with the personal revelation. 18 years of silence, 18 years of running, 18 years of burying the truth, and now it was all exposed. The younger woman yelled, "Watch the flank." The breacher returned fire, covering angles, every shot deliberate. The restless one finally found rhythm, moving with purpose, a soldier molded by her guidance. She locked eyes with the shadowed figure, recognition, rage, fear, history. "You should have stayed gone," she spat. "And you should have remembered," he replied, voice cold, yet almost intimate. Every second stretched, every heartbeat screamed danger, every breath was heavy with memory and consequence. The device hummed louder, pulsing, vibrating, a countdown toward unknown catastrophe. She realized then the mission was more than extraction, more than intel, more than survival. It was a reckoning. She moved fast, precise toward the device. Kael beside her, shadows moving like specters. The shadowed figure blocked her path. Every instinct screamed attack. But another voice, the younger woman, clear, calm, shouted, "Go, I've got him." She hesitated, and in that fraction of a second, Kael struck and the figure faltered. She moved past, hands on the device, eyes scanning, calculating, cutting, disarming. Seconds stretched like hours. Then finally the device powered down, silent. The room fell still. She exhaled, dropping to her knees, chest heaving. Victory, relief, perhaps, but beneath it a gnawing ache. The past had been confronted but not conquered. The man ghost of her history, architect of her return, still stood, watching, waiting. Kael placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's done," he said softly. She nodded, swallowing hard, eyes still locked on him. "For now." The younger woman approached, eyes wide. Who was that?" She straightened, voice steady, though her heart still raced. "Someone I thought I lost. Someone who shaped everything I became." The team exhaled, tension releasing slowly, but she knew the mission wasn't truly over. Not yet. Because even as the device lay silent, the personal reckoning, the confrontation with the ghost of her past, was far from complete. And the desert outside waited, indifferent, for the choices yet to come. Why did the desert feel like it had been holding its breath? The corridor was silent now. The hum of the device had ceased, replaced by the steady rhythm of their own heartbeats. Dust hung in the air, stirred by their passage. Shadows clung to the walls, lingering like ghosts. She dropped to one knee, fingers brushing sand where a dropped shell lay, a small echo of the chaos just past. Relief, exhaustion, fear, triumph, all tangled inside her like barbed wire. Kael stood nearby, watching. No words, just presence. His eyes, sharp, assessing, yet softened by history, met hers. She allowed herself a small exhale, long and trembling. 18 years of running, hiding, pretending. And now, in this silent, flickering light of the compound's heart, she faced it all. The shadowed figure, the man she had thought dead, was gone. Not captured, not defeated. Simply gone, like a ghost retreating, leaving her to stand in the aftermath. The younger woman moved closer, eyes wide, admiration and confusion mingling. "How did you?" She straightened, shoulders heavy, gaze steady. "Experience," she said quietly, and it was true. Years of training, sacrifice, and survival had all converged in that moment. But experience alone hadn't carried her through. Something else had: resolve. The stubborn, unyielding will to do what was necessary to protect, to endure. The breacher exhaled, scanning the empty corridors. That was insane. The restless one muttered, "I don't ever want to do that again." She allowed herself a faint, bitter smile. "Neither do I." Outside, the desert stretched endlessly. Pale light of early dawn touched the sand, soft and indifferent. The mission was technically complete. They had neutralized the device, survive the ambush and escape the compound. But for her, the real mission had been internal. Confronting the past she had buried, facing the man she had once trusted with everything, and realizing that survival wasn't only about living, it was about reclaiming herself. Kael approached her. His voice was quiet, almost reflective. "You've changed, stronger but still the same, the part I always trusted." Her chest tightened. Recognition, memory, loss, love, rage, all colliding in the space between them. "I survived," she said simply. "Yes," he said, "but now you live, and that matters." She glanced at the team. They had followed her into chaos, trusted her decisions, and survived. She felt pride tempered by fatigue. They had been witnesses to her return, silent, steady, loyal, and she would not forget them. "Let's move," she said. "We regroup. Extraction is minutes out." The desert wind swept over them as they emerged into daylight. Each step felt deliberate, grounded, real. Not like the adrenaline-soaked crawl through corridors and sand. This was life. Fragile, uncertain, and yet undeniably theirs. The younger woman asked softly, "Do you ever regret it, coming back?" She looked at the horizon, sun touching the dunes with gold. She considered all the choices, all the losses, all the sacrifices. She thought of her daughter, waiting far from this desert, unaware of the storms her mother had faced. She thought of the seals she had left behind, the friends she would never see again, and the ghosts that had hunted her through the years. And then she said, quietly but with certainty, "No, not for a second. Survival alone isn't enough. You have to act. You have to face what haunts you. And sometimes the only way forward is through the fire you tried to leave behind." The team nodded, understanding more than they knew. She could see it in their eyes, the respect, the trust, the realization that they were witnessing something beyond mere mission success. They were witnessing a reckoning of a life lived in silence, courage, and sacrifice. Kael fell in step beside her. What now? She considered it. The desert stretched endlessly, indifferent and eternal. But she felt something shift inside her, clarity, resolve, quiet pride. 18 years of hiding, of running, of burying herself, could not erase what she had become. "Now," she said softly, "we go home, we live." The team moved as one, shadows stretching behind them, leaving the compound behind. Dust swirled in the sunlight, glinting faintly, a reminder that life, chaos, and history were all intertwined. She glanced at Kael. For a heartbeat, the years between them vanished. Not entirely healed, not entirely reconciled, but acknowledged. Sometimes presence alone was enough. Sometimes facing the past didn't require forgiveness, only acceptance. As they reached the extraction point, the hum of helicopters cut through the desert's stillness. Rotors whipped up sand, carrying them away from the compound, from the danger, from the past. She climbed into the helicopter last, casting one final glance back. The desert stretched endlessly, sun blazing, shadows retreating. The steel doors, the corridors, the ambush, all remained behind. She carried only what mattered: survival, memory, and the unshakable knowledge that she had faced herself and endured. Kael followed, climbing in beside her. He looked at her, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. She nodded. Small, subtle, yet profound. Trust, respect, acknowledgment, enough for now. The younger woman and the rest of the team settled, exhaustion visible in their posture but pride in their eyes. She allowed herself a small, private smile. They had survived, yes, but more importantly, they had acted with courage, witnessed history, witnessed humanity in extremis. As the helicopter lifted, the desert fell away. Below, the compound became just another shadow, another story in a land that would forget it, but one she would never forget. She touched the tattoo on her wrist, the faded seal trident. 18 years of hiding it, covering it, pretending it didn't exist. And now, here in the desert sun, she didn't need to hide. It was a reminder not of past glory but of survival, of choice, of action, of who she was and who she could be. She exhaled, quiet, heavy, complete. Sometimes, she thought, looking at the horizon, dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. Sometimes courage isn't loud. It doesn't demand recognition. It survives. And sometimes the ghosts of your past, no matter how long they've waited, can't destroy you unless you let them. The helicopter climbed higher, carrying them away from danger, away from the desert, away from the ambush, the steel doors, the shadows. And she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She had returned, not as a shadow, not as a ghost, not as a survivor hiding in silence. She had returned as herself. Strong, determined, unbroken. And finally free.